And welcome in to another episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And Lino, we knew this day would come. It is time to discuss Tyler Herro's return. Since our last show, the Heat have had 4 games now with Tyler Herro. They're 3-1, which is the most important thing. They're continuing to win games. But of course, there were going to be a lot of questions about how he would reintegrate with this new group. So, Lino, I think that's the best place to start. I kind of want to get into all the different aspects of it. So, instead of giving you a general, how do you think he's looked, I want to start with what side of the ball are you most intrigued about Tyler's fit with this group specifically?
For me, it's going to be the defense, which overall, that's kind of what I walked into these games being concerned with. And he's not exactly a defensive stalwart by any means, but I will say I have been pleasantly surprised in these 4 games, at least from an effort standpoint. He's made at least a few pretty big plays off the ball, generating turnovers, which is always really important to have. And then on the ball, I think guys have been able to get to what they want against him in the aggregate or in the big picture, but play by play, he doesn't exactly look like a traffic cone to me, which is, I think, a pretty good scenario to be in and a good defensive effort to get from your 25 point per game scorer. So many other scorers of his caliber are playing much less defense and giving half the effort that he gives. And so overall, I was not terrified about what things were going to look like defensively there. And, the offense, I had a little curiosity there just about how he was going to fit, but I just knew he was going to, figure out a way to be impactful, which he's shown. But, what about you? Where were you kind of keyed in on as far as what side of the ball would be most important for him to show up on?
Yeah, so I'd like to start as on the defensive end as well, because we know throughout Tyler's career that's always been kind of what you'd call the drawback, or maybe the side of the court he has more issues with. So I think the realization I kind of came to watching these games, and they like you said, there were some moments where it looked good, there were some moments where it looked really bad, and that's including effort, which I do want people to keep in mind. He's still getting in game shape, not trying to make excuses, but if it's at the end of the game, he's reaching his minutes limit and he's being called up by the best perimeter player on the other side of the court. It's hard to expect like max effort when he would need to make it. So, caveat aside, I think what kind of dawned on me is previously, especially last season, there was really no world in which the Heat could be better with Tyler off the court because he was such a huge boost to the offense. He could almost do nothing on defense, and the Heat had so few alternatives that it didn't matter. They had to keep him out there. And so I think what crystallized for me is this early season success has established for the first time since he was drafted, probably. And I have to speak the forbidden one's name, but the Heat could look good on both ends without Tyler or Jimmy on the court. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you've been able to say that since 2020. And so I think for Heat fans, maybe especially ones with some, ill feelings towards Tyler, it was kind of an exciting time because it's like, hey, we don't need this guy anymore. And so, of course, anyone motivated to look for the negative in Tyler's game would key in on the defense. I think what you hit on is good, and that I think Tyler has got to a passable level against average players. And so, what I
Yeah.
mean by that is his traditional matchup. So, like in the Clippers game, it was Chris Dunn, right? Chris Dunn's a defense first player. He drew a couple fouls on Tyler, but it's not like a role player, a below average offensive player can just attack Tyler. I think
Mhm.
he can make plays in that instance. We saw the same thing in the Milwaukee game. A couple of their guys tried to go at him. He had he made some plays on defense. I think, and this has been the case since he was drafted, star players are going to hunt him. And it's going to be A, because he's not a great defender, and B, because he's by far the best option. And I think this is an interesting, maybe not talked about enough aspect of he and Bam's pairing is that most teams, and we saw the Clippers do this a little bit, their go-to is just to call the center up, right? Because I mean
Yeah.
that guy's going to be slower. Bam is one of the only centers in the league that is a mismatch on the other end, like a reverse
Mhm.
mismatch. You know, Kawhi
Yeah.
doesn't want to call up Bam. That might be worse than Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah.
So because of that, then they're looking to, okay, what's the next best option? Oh, 14. That guy's small. That guy's not very quick. Let me go at him. So I threw a lot out there, but what do you make of having an alternative from Tyler? And then maybe what do you think is the best way for him to handle being attacked by these star players down the stretch?
We talked last week about elite teams and how they live with their flaws in their roster and even in their concepts. I think this is a roster flaw that we can live with in exchange for a consistent 25 point per game score. Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, they're going to score on somebody. Like, we can scheme our way to make it difficult for them, to make it less efficient, but there's not, Spo isn't walking in the building and saying, how are we going to keep Kawhi Leonard from scoring 30? He's like, how can we win even though Kawhi Leonard's going to score 30? And so when guys like that are getting Tyler into the picture and then scoring on him, as long as the effort's there and the team rallies around that in ways and we get the right help defense, I could honestly care less about how good of a defender Tyler is, given what he provides in general and where he takes our ceiling as an offense, and that he's actually still trying on defense, which I feel like he's shown across these last few games. And so, with that, like, in the past, it used to be an issue because random scrub heat killers would show up and put up 35 on Tyler. And that's a huge issue. Like, that is what we don't want. But, if Chris Dunn scores 15 or 20, it's like, okay, that's not ideal, but I think we can still win this game because Tyler's going to give us 25, Norm's going to give us 25. Three bench players are going to give us 15, and Bam's going to give us somewhere between 15 and 20. Like, there's a recipe to win that doesn't require us to stop a team from scoring more than 100 points. Now, when we had a terrible offense or one that was fully dependent on Tyler, we needed to be the very best defense in the league. We needed to hold people to 95, 87, 99 type scores. Now that we are averaging 120, 130 points per game, that there's some leeway there that we can have in exchange for a higher powered offense. And I don't know that the math makes sense to shun a 25 point per game score like Tyler because Kawhi Leonard got 30, because James Harden can get 30 on him, because Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to call him up in a pick and roll. Like, these are things that they're going to do to whoever we put there. And while they may be slightly less efficient with Pelle Larson on him or Jaime Jaquez Jr. on him, Drew Smith, like, they're still going to get theirs. Tyler's going to ensure that we get ours. And while the offense has looked good without him, there's clearly times when things just absolutely bottomed out. And Norm, luckily we have Norm Powell now, which helps. But over the span of 82 games, if Norm is not having it and we didn't have Tyler, we'd be in really bad situations 9 times out of 10. So that's kind of where I'm at with his defensive effort and what it means for a team to be attacking him. I don't, I think that's something that I can live with. Do you feel differently or?
I don't know if I'd say differently. I think I agree with most everything you said, and I think with Tyler, it's not the exact same thing, but it's almost similar to Kalel's effort with rebounding, to where
Mhm.
it is so loud when you're watching, right? Like when you see Kalel 7 foot whatever not getting rebounds, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Tyler, it's not because of his size, but it's because he's being called up in isolation every time, and it's like, man, it doesn't even look like you're trying. And I think
Mhm.
that is kind of the difference you see. I would like to specifically highlight the Detroit game and the Clippers game, right? So the
Yeah.
Detroit game, that was about as bad as we've seen like veteran Tyler's defense look.
Mhm.
And I used to say this about Duncan as well, but I think Tyler's defense looks the worst when he looks like he's trying to do what he thinks he's supposed to do in that
Yeah.
situation instead of trying to make the offensive player think or give them a second look or kind of just stunt one way, make them second guess something. So you saw with Cade, right? Cade was bringing Tyler up really from the start of the game, but especially down the stretch and was trying to attack him. And Tyler has had instances, especially last year, where I thought he was pretty good in hedge and recover defense. For people
Mhm.
that don't know, so Davion's on Cade, Tyler's man, whether it was different people throughout the game, let's say it's Duncan Robinson, he sets a screen on Davion. The idea for the Pistons is now Cade gets to come off that screen. There's not enough time to do anything but switch, so Tyler has to switch on to Cade. Cade attacks him. Hedge and recover is the alternative to switching, which Tyler basically just tries to put a body in front of Cade for long enough for Davion to get around the Duncan screen and get attached back to Cade, essentially. So the issue with that can be if Tyler doesn't provide that hedge, that wall to hold Cade up for long enough, it can result in very easy looks. And I've seen him play with great activity, high hands, active feet, and make ball handlers like second guess which pass they're supposed to make. And that's all it takes for Davion to get back in the picture, right? But I think
Mhm.
we saw with that Pistons game, and now the Pistons were setting some good screens. They were flipping screens. They were doing smart things. They're a good team. But I didn't see quite enough effort from Tyler in that situation.
Yeah.
But I think in the Clippers game, you could tell, and this is why I've always leaned towards being more of a Tyler supporter than anything else. He came out with great energy. When his man was
Mhm.
cutting through the paint, he wasn't just trailing him, he had a hand up. There was an instance where we had a live ball turnover and Chris Dunn got the ball. Tyler was behind Chris Dunn or maybe side to side with him. And Tyler sprinted back on defense and was actually waving off. I think it was Bam that was about to pick up Chris Dunn so Tyler could get back and get in front of him. The reason for
Mhm.
that is if Tyler's on anybody else on that possession, that's exactly where that possession's going, right? If he got
Yeah.
matched on Harden or Kawhi, but he knew I have to do a dead sprint right now to get back on defense, to get back in front of the guy I need to be on to not hurt the team. So for
Mhm.
me, that was all I needed to see. I was like,
Yeah.
listen, he'll get his win back. He'll figure out how to make, he has to have his A plus game on defense every night because
Mhm.
his A
Yeah.
plus is average for anyone else, right? So
Yeah.
that was all I needed to see. And I
Yeah.
think he'll get his win back.
And to your point, I do think a lot of what I saw that didn't look great, I was chalking up to just that fact of him getting caught up to NBA speed. But also, I think maybe sometimes, and I don't know, I guess I'd have to hear from other fan bases on this, but I feel like we're a bit spoiled in how we interpret NBA level effort. Just because when Tyler kind of mails it in sometimes I kind of chalk it up to like, yeah, that's what I feel like most basketball players do across 100 possessions. Like, but we're the Heat and we watch, 8 of our guys give 100% on every possession. And so it looks so different. But I think when I'm coming from like watching other games, I'm like, yeah, he probably took as many defensive shifts off as James Harden did or even Kawhi. Like, this is just kind of a thing that happens, especially when you're getting ramped up from injury and from having not played for a while. But you're right. I probably have a bit of rose colored glasses when it comes to ignoring some of the issues, just because I do think in general it looks better or like it's progressed in the right direction. And I thought I probably had a bit of a defeatist attitude when it came to that Detroit game. I just thought we were outclassed in a lot of ways. It's honestly one of the better teams I think we've seen all season outside of like Detroit, not Detroit, Denver.
Mhm.
So with that, I kind of walked in there like, we're probably going to get punched in the mouth a bit here. And maybe it was a bit of self fulfilling prophecy, but things started to really turn around in that game. And so I left that game actually very confused.
Yes, it was one of the we don't have to get all the way into that game specifically, but yeah, it was one of the more perplexing games of the season because yeah, if you would have asked me like early in the fourth, halfway through the third, whatever, I would have been like, "Oh man, we got a lot to figure out." And then what do you know? The ball starts going in the basket, and I'm like, "Hey, this doesn't look that bad. Maybe we're not that far away." And then of course we play the Clippers, who have been awful this season, and we make a million threes, and everything feels great. So as everyone knows, even though it's an 82 game season, fans like Lino, myself, and anyone listening, I'm sure we're living and dying with every quarter with this team, not
Oh
just
yeah.
every game. But I do think overall the body of work since Tyler's return is promising. Just to get
Mhm.
some quick numbers, I know we want to talk about the offense as well, but I thought this was informative. So what I'm about to go through is the net rating, the offensive rating, the defensive rating, and the pace. Okay. So I'm gonna say what the Heat's rank has been on the season, and then what it's been with Tyler. So net rating, they are plus 6.7. That would rank sixth in the NBA, which is awesome, by the way. That's big time. With Tyler, it is 6.6, so zero point 0.1 less, and that would rank sixth in the NBA. So that's encouraging. They would rank 11th in offense or they rank 11th in offense on the season at 118.1. With Tyler, they are at 118.2, which would rank ninth in offense. So again, very similar. Defense, they rank fourth in defense on the season. The 4 games with Tyler, they're at 111.6 defensive rating. That would rank about fourth in defense. In pace, they are first on the season. With Tyler, they're at a 106 pace, which would rank first. So it's 4 games. It's a small sample size, but it's very important. I feel like for all the Heat fans that are like, Tyler's blown up this team, they're 3-1, and their net, their offense, their defense, and their pace is all about the same.
Yeah,
since
exactly.
since in Tyler's 4 games. Also, not to mention he's averaging 25, 5, and 3 on 68% true shooting. So we
Not bad if you ask me.
haven't talked about the offense yet, but it's looked pretty good.
And
Do you have
another
any?
thing that I want, yeah, another thing I want to note is that that first game against Dallas and then that next game in Milwaukee, I think it probably scared a lot of the fans because the scores were just so much lower than we've seen all season. I mean, we won those games, but it was 106 to 102, 106 to 103, and so the fan watching the game isn't always considering how offensive rating works because it's based off of efficiency, but the scores are low. So in your head, you're saying, the offense looks slower. We look way worse. When in reality, we're going to face so many teams who play us the way we used to play high octane offenses. Like Dallas, Milwaukee are teams that are built to drag you down into the mud, make things ugly so that they can hope to win the game. Because if they played at our speed, if they tried to keep up with our pace, they'd get blown out of the water, much like the Clippers did. So we're going to see that a lot. And it was just unfortunate that we saw that against in Tyler's first 2 games because that was part of it. I was like, what if this is Tyler kind of struggling? But what if this is those 2 teams playing a really low block and just trying to slow things down? And ultimately, it just brings the offensive pace to a halt. So with that, I'm glad we got the Detroit game, even though we lost that one. And I'm glad we got the Clippers game because both of those games, the offense looked much more like it's supposed to. We just weren't making shots in the Detroit game until the very end. And then the Clippers, I think that is very, very cognizant of what this team can look like with Tyler.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that in those first 2 games, the Dallas and the Milwaukee game, yes, those aren't great teams. Giannis was out, but the Heat won, and the Heat shot horribly from three. That's going to be a big reason, and it's funny because the hypotheticals work both ways, right? So Tyler comes back, and we have 2 of our worst, even by offensive rating, 2 of our worst games of the season. Everyone thinks Tyler ruined it, right? But he actually individually had pretty good games. So the hypothetical works just as easily the other way that, hey, could you imagine if we hadn't had Tyler and had shot that poorly from three? Like, what if he actually isn't the reason the offense was broken? What if it was just an off night or a good, or a bad defensive matchup for us? Thank goodness we had this guy that can get his own shot, can make some floaters. So anyway, every hypothetical, it can always work the other way. We don't
Mhm.
actually know what these games would look like without Tyler. We'll never be able to see that Dallas game if he hadn't played. So it's just important to keep those things in mind. But as we've talked about the offense, that's kind of what I want to get into next. And for anyone that might not be online as much as Lino and I, the big concern with Tyler's return to the offense is Tyler is first and foremost a pick and roll ball handler. That is his main role on offense. He wants to run pick and roll. He's very good at it. He's very good at scoring out of it. But throughout his career, isolation scoring, driving, attacking defenders one on one has not always been his strong suit. And that is the main focus of our new offense this season that we've had so much success with. So, Lino, I'll just throw it to you. How do you think Tyler has fit into this system, and how do you think his style, complements or takes away from what we've seen the team do?
It certainly looks different, but I come away from these 4 games feeling relatively positive about it. It definitely has an effect. Like I don't want fans to feel crazy because some of it is eye test. Like you're looking at it and it just looks different. The numbers luckily look great and we're winning games. But I will say, I feel like the ball doesn't exactly move the same way. The off ball movement with Tyler on the court isn't exactly the same. Like, I wouldn't even necessarily say it's worse. I can just tell guys move around Tyler, and Tyler moves differently in these units than it was without him. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because we're winning, and he's been very effective as a scorer. Even without all the pick and rolls, he's still managed to score at a pretty healthy level. He's not entirely beating guys off the dribble, but he's got such an effective mid range game and his three is still very, very lethal. And those two things help out. It just looks so different because everybody else to score, they've had to kind of get to the rim. Tyler doesn't get to the rim as much, but he also doesn't need to. So he still has a similar impact. But again, everything just visually looks so different. And that doesn't help when the score ends up being 106 for 2 games. Like you see the difference and then you see the score and you feel bad about it. But I'm glad we got this Clippers game because it looks similarly different, but the score was 140 because everybody else was making their shots again. So that's kind of my main takeaway is that I do think he's still got some work to do the things that everybody else is doing off the ball that makes the wheel so functional in regards to cuts, in regards to movement. I think particularly movement on the baseline seems to get a bit stagnant, and I don't think the wheel is rotating, with the right timing that it did with everybody who got a full training camp and full practice to and a full preseason to kind of unload this offense. But I do think he'll figure it out. I do think he's making it work in the way that can work for him. And I think really there's even room for improvement. I'm kind of glad that things don't look perfect because I think we're not at a limit to how great this offense can be. I think that it could look even sharper moving forward. So hopefully he'll get it figured out. But, as you were watching it and as you've been looking at the offense, kind of what are your takeaways with Tyler included?
Well, I think the thing that occurred to me as I was looking through all this and overanalyzing every single Tyler possession, this thought occurred to me. Lino, do you remember how many preseason games this Heat team won?
Zero.
Zero, right? I
Yeah.
don't think either of us did an episode saying, "Oh my god, this offense, this is about to be amazing," because it looked clunky. They
Yeah.
had all those guys had a full training camp, and it still was like, "Wait, do I cut here? Oh, sorry, I faked a cut. I'm not supposed to do that." So again, might sound like excuse making. It's important to remember, and I'm actually interested to see if we trade for anyone this year because I feel like it could be a similar effect.
That's what I've been scared of when we have a trade conversations. My main fear is that
Right.
people don't know what the hell how to do this.
Yeah, exactly. So that is something to keep in mind that Tyler has played pick and roll basketball his entire life and now suddenly is in an offense that is running fewer pick and rolls than any team ever has since NBA has tracking data. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. So I will say, yes, there have been some miscues. Like Tyler himself said in that first game, he tried to call up Kalel to run a pick and roll and had to be like, wait, sorry, no. And there's been, different instances where he faked a cut, which you're not really supposed to do in this offense because everybody needs to know where everyone will be. A couple instances where the spacing isn't right. But I think ultimately it's looked better and better each game. I
Hmm.
think Tyler's floater is a cool counterpunch for this offense. It's just like attack, attack, attack. I like that he can get into his mid range. And I think he's getting better at running into the catch. That's a huge part of this offense. Some people call it like, I think stampeding, but it's essentially
Hmm.
Dirk Nowitzki was amazing at this. But instead of catching, getting a triple threat, surveying, you're actually actively running to the catch. That's what you see so often. Davion will bring it up. It might be Pella cuts through the middle. Wiggins lifts from the wing, but he doesn't lift to a catch and shoot position. He's still in stride, catches the ball, and immediately with his momentum is going to the basket. That's not something Tyler might necessarily feel comfortable with immediately, but I think he'll get better and better and also just understand like he'll be more comfortable driving and attacking because he'll be more familiar with where his teammates will
Hmm.
be. And ultimately, like I maybe this sounds too optimistic. This dude is a legit offensive player. Like
He's
last
still the
year,
all-star player that he was last year, by the way. These 4 games, like if you just look at his performance on the ball, like he looks very sharp. and a
Yeah.
guy that was our saving grace last season.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't an offensive metric last year other than the clutch stuff, but that's fluky. But like in the totality of the season, there was not an offensive metric that said Tyler was not one of like the 10 to 15 best offensive players in basketball. So I know he takes stuff away on the defensive end. I know this offense might not totally cater towards him, but I think he's figuring it out. I think he'll figure it out really quickly because he's honestly a borderline savant offensively, and especially considering he has almost no physical advantage on anyone on the court, and he's still able to be a hyper efficient
It's
24,
pretty crazy.
25 point a game scorer. So I want to say all that. The one thing I will say, I think I like that Spo's doing, and we'll get a little bit into rotation talk. So the Clippers game I thought was a cool blueprint. So it's the starters, which we'll talk about all that in a second. Tyler plays with them. Tyler was pretty hands off. And I didn't think it was in like a passive aggressive kind of way. I think he was just letting other guys get to their shots. Bam started hot. Wiggins was very
Mhm.
aggressive to start. But then Spo puts in, he might actually sub out Tyler first, bring in Jaime, and then he brings Tyler back with more bench players. So it ended up being Tyler, Drew, Pella, Jaime, Kalel. And that group, Tyler then started to be a little more aggressive, hunt his shot a little more. So I just love that adjustment from Spo to be like,
Mhm.
Tyler, fit in with the starters. Then it's going to be your time to go get yours. This group will need you, and they can still play the run, pace and space kind of style. So I enjoyed that. Do you have anything else on the offense? And if not, what do you think of the rotation?
Yeah, I think the last thing on the offense is just that that pick and roll stuff, all the things that Tyler's naturally good at, is going to be super important down the stretch. If this is Rio and we sustain this and we're a top seed in the playoffs and we're like in the middle of making a run, then having different caveats to our offense is going to be huge. And so even with his struggles, it's something that I do hope Spo continues to, you know, add into the offense, some pick and roll, some set plays, some things that Tyler can execute super well, just so we're comfortable getting to that in the postseason. Just because we don't want to be kind of a one trick pony. As there's already kind of conversations about having a gimmick offense. But really, I do think all the different facets of Tyler are going to make our offense that much more versatile. With the rotation, I was I was not surprised to see the lineup that we went to with Davion, Tyler, Norm, Andrew, and Bam. I thought that that was the best lineup we could probably produce with this team. And I think I texted you this after the game or during the game yesterday. When we have three of the best defenders in the world playing at that level, it really doesn't matter how good of a defensive player your other two guys are. With Drew or with Davion, Wiggins, and Bam really just playing lights out defense, like if you're just going to put 50 points per game together and the other two players who it doesn't matter what's going to happen on the other side of the ball. And I thought that was pretty reflective in that Clippers game. That's probably my favorite lineup so far in regards to starters. I know it's kind of I was enamored by the double big situation. Drew, Pele, Jaime have all had really great stints in this starting lineup. It's kind of Jovic is kind of nowhere to be seen right now, and that may be the case for a little bit until he can figure things out with his at least scoring or really anything. If you can figure out anything about how to play basketball right now, he's not even in the conversation. But I think those guys and the philosophy of just playing your five best players just is going to work in the long term for us. But were there any lineups that you found to be most interesting? Do you have any ideas of who you'd rather start instead of who they started last night?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions when this team is fully healthy. And again, a lot of that is complicated by how successful they were without Tyler. I feel like everyone's roles just were easy, made a lot more sense. But I think the team, like we've covered, will be better with Tyler and will need Tyler. So, with that being said, when will they need him in terms of what points in the game is it most important to have him out there, who he should play with, who he shouldn't play with? Those are the questions that I think are most interesting. So, we can get into all the different combinations. I think the pairing that is pretty much where all this stems from is Norm and Tyler. And the reason being is they are not identical players, but they are pretty similar in that they're both shooting guards at the end of the day with different levels of playmaking ability. Tyler's a pretty good passer, but he's not a true point guard. And they're not very good point of attack defenders. So we saw, last night's game, they're playing the Clippers. You put Davion on James Harden, you put Wiggins on Kawhi, and you put Bam on Zubac. You feel pretty good about that, but you do have to put Norm on John Collins, which is kind of weird. It's John Collins is not a big deal, but it's not a matchup you might necessarily
One day
feel
that might
super.
be Aaron Gordon, and that could be
Yes.
really fucked.
Right, exactly. So that's the thing. And again, listen, we're not going to be the Thunder. There's no rotation lineup combination that's going to make us the Thunder. We're like a top 5 defense right now, so that's awesome. But I think that's where most of the issues are coming from. And I also think what further complicates this is, and we could do a whole Davion episode, but oh man, that guy, like,
He's
man.
playing perfect basketball right now. Like, I just don't know what else you could ask from a point guard.
That honestly is a great word for it. It really feels like perfection because he's always been an elite on ball defender, and that is still true. His off ball defense, and I know Spose talked about challenging him in this way because Davion hasn't always been super impactful off the ball. He's off night, he's given his matchup a hard time, but lately he is. I mean, he had several. He's just been blowing up post ups. Anytime a guy turns his back on him, he's stripping the ball. So you have him playing like that on defense, but then he's averaging, I think, over 7 assists a game and below 2 turnovers a game, I believe is the stat. I think Brady Hawk had that on Twitter. Only player in the
Mhm.
NBA doing that. There's like a certain amount of guys that are over 7 assists. None of them are below 2 turnovers a game. So great playmaking. Anyway, so I say all that is, and also the pace. I mean, he pushes the ball. You could argue, is the most bought in to this offense.
They were
And I say
saying that in the post conference as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah. So I say all that to say they're not taking him out of the starting lineup. I know
Mhm.
last year Spo kind of liked him on the bench. I think that's Jaime's role now. I think Davion's staying. I think you got to play both the shooting guards and Tyler and Norm because you just 60% true shooting, 25 point per game scores. You don't really bench that usually. Bam's going to start. And so then to me, it was a Wiggins discussion. And shout out to Andrew. He just like started balling at the exact right time where it's not really a discussion anymore. Um, and
Not
you
taking
also
me
need,
out.
yeah, and you also need his size because, like, yes,
Yeah.
if you start Ware and Bam, then Bam can guard the guys Andrew might normally, but still, this is a long-winded response, but I agree with you. I like the starting lineup that they're going with right now the most. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to bench one of Norm or Tyler. I think that
Mhm.
would be more trouble than it's worth. When we're seeing exactly what Spo's doing, which is he starts both of them for a pretty brief amount of time, pulls Tyler pretty quickly, puts in someone like Jaime or Pella, so then you get that synergy you had from earlier in the season. And then when he brings in the what would have been a full bench unit previously, now Tyler's in there to help stabilize the offense if it's an off night for Jaime or any of those guys. So
Mhm.
I think all that makes a lot of sense right now. I do want to talk. If you have any thoughts on that, we can go with that. But I also want to talk about the end of the rotation and who's kind of getting squeezed right now.
Yeah, before we get to that, and that will be a pretty fun conversation because there's a lot of options. But I think the only other thing I wanted to say is just that conceptually, I think it's okay for us to play Tyler and Norm just because I think if there's any position you can kind of get away with playing somebody slightly smaller than they're supposed to be, it might be that wing position because I think a lot of other teams are doing it too. A lot of them are playing really tall point shooting guards or really small, small forwards as twos. There's just, the NBA has just gotten weird in that way that I think it's not a problem, especially because, like I mentioned earlier, the 3 incredible defenders we have there and Davion, Wiggins, and Bam, but also because they're going to target Tyler anyway. So it's not like they're gonna go target Norm now. It's like your option. You already have a game plan when you come to play the Heat, and it's how can we get Tyler Hero into this action? And so with that, it almost makes them have to decide what they're going to do. And in that indecision, there may be some opportunities for us to make things difficult for them on offense. And then Tyler and Norm are just going to balance that out with great scoring, as we've seen. And it's just electric seeing them both on the floor just because the defense on the other end has so many decisions to make about who they're going to cover and who they're going to prioritize. So I think the payoff is just fine. I think it's better than not playing Davion and not having a true point guard out there, which I'm someone philosophically very against that. That was one of my biggest gripes with the Suns' previous iterations after they got rid of Chris Paul. Is like they just don't have a point guard. They're going to make Bradley Beal be a point guard or Devin Booker. I don't enjoy that style of basketball. It may be working for them now. I don't know if they have a point guard now, but I think the Suns are playing well. Neither here nor there. I'm glad we're starting Davion. I'm glad we're starting our two all-star shooting guards and our Olympian center and our champion, like NBA champion in Wiggins. Like it's just makes sense to have those five guys on the floor. Um, but it's going to get tough because we got a lot of good players right now. Some guys are going to get squeezed. Some guys, I think it's going to be fine. I mean, Jovic is kind of pick the perfect time to struggle because it makes that decision a lot easier. I think Pele is probably the next guy that gets squeezed. He's been really good for us, but I think he's been good in like a way that a role player can be and can get back to and can kind of see minutes here and there. I don't know that he needs to be exactly a staple of the offense, but those two are probably the first to go. And then Ware, I think, is just kind of filling in minutes after Bam's out. Unfortunately, I feel like we're not going to see too much double big lineups moving forward unless people, miss time. But I think Ware's going to get plenty of minutes so long as he keeps the effort up in that bench position.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ware's locked in. Obviously, we only have one other center on the roster, and
Mhm.
like you said, I hope there are nights where he's playing really well and is able to maybe get some double big time. Maybe he plays in a stretch over Jaime or Wiggins if they're having kind of a
Mhm.
slower night. So I think he's locked. Jaime's locked. He's
Yeah.
potential 6 man of the year candidate. Um, by the way, quick sidebar: what have you thought about Jaime's play recently?
I feel like it's one of those things where like, have I just missed him? Because I know he was out a game, but I just sometimes, so early he had such a fingerprint on the game. But I feel like these past few, I was like, did he play this game? Did I just completely miss him? And then yesterday when I watched him play against the Clippers, I thought the effort was there, and I was like, "Oh, look at Jaime go!" But it was like three possessions where he looked like he was about to make an incredible play, and then either missed a shot or lost an offensive or defensive rebound or something. And I was like, "Oh, well, actually, it wasn't that great, but it looked cool for a second." So I don't know. I think maybe he's just got to get fully healthy. And he had a bit of a situation. What was it, like a groin injury or something like that? So overall, it's kind of rough. And then defensively, he's not exactly a stalwart either. So that's kind of tough when it comes to decision making.
Yeah, yeah, I think overall Jaime will be fine, but I hadn't thought of it until we kind of watched it play out live in front of us. But he does make sense as a leading candidate to have their usage siphoned from Tyler, like in
Hmm.
those backup units where Jaime was pretty much running the show. I think Tyler will be doing that for the most part, and Jaime's usage will probably go down. He'll probably be kind of more selectively attacking and transition things like that. I'm sure he'll still be impactful and effective. And of course, we're having this conversation as the team is completely healthy, which is very rare. So there will be opportunities for more guys to step up in that way. So to finish out the thought, where I feel like is locked, Jaime's locked. I think Pella just sprained his foot. They did an MRI. It's a sprained toe. He's questionable for tomorrow's game against Dallas. So the fact that he's already questionable is a good sign. Probably isn't very serious. He's played so well and understands this offense so well. I really hope they keep playing him. Um, and then Drew Smith. I love having that extra defense out there. So that's getting you to, I think, 9 guys with the starters plus those 4. I think that's where you're going to be. And that 10th guy right now, I would guess will be Simone most of the time
Hmm.
until Nico shows us a little bit more. Just doesn't, there's not a lot of units right now. I feel like that are like, I watched them and think, oh man, they're missing Jovic. And that's probably
It's because
extra
he
true.
can't shoot. He's Simone is doing everything that I thought Nico would be able to do because I always felt really confident about Nico's 3-point shooting as it was growing. Um, and we saw flashes of it in that one game that he had for us this season. But until he can get back to that consistently, uh, I mean, he's just a worse Simone Fontecchio.
Yeah, that is a tough sentence to hear about a guy we just gave like a 4-year extension to,
Yeah.
but
And, this is not exactly part of the show, but I do want to say, like, I say all that, and at the same time, I'm still very patient with Nico. This is an incredibly young basketball player. Like, didn't he like just turn 21?
yes, he
He's very
well,
young,
no, he just turned 22, but
22, but still, it's like we've he's been in the league for a while now, and you would think somebody at this point in time would have really turned it around, but he's still got a long way to go for us. And I think the organization really believes in what he can be, and he's just got to figure it out. It doesn't look great right now. I think he'll be the first one to tell you he's not playing the way he wants. And I know it can be difficult once you get out of the rotation. That just sometimes makes things worse and it can kind of compile on itself. But I think we could have a similar situation where we were all out on, not maybe we as a unit, but as a fan base, we're out on Jaime Jaquez Jr. and frustrated with how much we got invested in him. And then he turned it around and looks great. And I think Jovic is just as capable of doing that. And hopefully he doesn't take a whole season to do it. It took Jaime the entire season and an off season to come back and be more like himself. So the skills are there. The intent is there, and I think he's going to figure it out. But right now, there's it's probably just pride and ego that's keeping us from sending him to the G League to figure it out, which could be good for him just to build the confidence back up. But a weird spot to be in.
it is tough. And yeah, I think everything you said is a good reminder. Nico's very young. He's under contract for a long time, so there's no like new decision to make. The decision has been made. He's gonna be on the team unless he gets traded. So yeah, there's time. Guys will get hurt. He'll get an opportunity to step up. I know what was it? I think it was the Detroit game where Jaime was out, and so then Nico got that shot, and who buddy missed. I fear. So that was tough to see. You love for that moment to be more like, man, Nico was that spark plug, but that game will come. It'll take
And you
time.
could tell he really wanted to be that, like especially when he came back in the second half. We got it down to like 8, and I know he just really wanted to come in and you know do something. And all he did was bad things for about 3 possessions straight,
Yep.
uh, 2 turnovers and a foul, I think. But all that to say, I still believe in the kid. I think he's going to figure it out. And I could say a lot of bad things, and I could feel much worse about it. But I think we should all just give it some time and be glad we've got such great depth on this team.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. We covered the offense, the defense, the rotation. Obviously that was all very Tyler centric. I want to take this last bit of the show just to hit a couple tidbits and maybe give some shout outs to people we haven't talked about so far. My first tidbit, uh, this offense, I tracking data updates like a week after every week of games. It's like a week behind. So I don't have it up to date, but catch and shoot threes I feel like has become my marker for how healthy this offense is looking. I feel like you can watch a game sometimes and it's like, gosh, this Heat team hasn't had a catch and shoot three in like this whole quarter. But when they
Mhm.
do generate some, it's usually because they've had like two or three driving kicks and like Simone, Norm, whoever it is, springs wide open. So anyway, that is something I'm watching. NBA.com has team stats where you can do like shot tracking and you can look at 3-point attempts with zero dribbles. So that's what I'm
Mhm.
doing. The Heat are in the middle in the NBA, which is to be expected with this offense. It's not like designed to catch a ton of 3-point, like catch and shoot 3-point looks, but I wouldn't want that number to go any lower. So anyway, I just throw that out. It's like that's a little tidbit. That's a little thing I'm watching every game, especially with Tyler coming back. I'm like, okay, how many like catch and shoot looks are he and Norm getting? Because I feel like that's a
Yeah.
good symptom
Does
of
that
this offense being healthy.
what does it look like with I'm curious what it looks like with one dribble shots, because I feel like we have a lot of guys who like to take a recovery dribble to the side
Hmm.
or pump fake. And I guess those don't necessarily count in catch and shoot threes, but they're probably replacing a ton of catch and shoot threes.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a very interesting thing and a good point, especially since we score so many points in the paint. And I know that counts as a considerable amount of our offense. It's good to hear that we still manage to keep like a middle of the ground or a middle of the pack catch and shoot three volume.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially you think of guys like Bam, Pella, Wiggins, Davion, those guys are mostly taking catch and shoot. Davion will take a
Mhm.
rhythm dribble or something, but those are the kind of threes those guys are taking. And again, if they're getting open looks generated for them, I think that's a good sign. The
Yeah.
offense is flowing healthily. Speaking of 3-point shooting, Bam Adebayo on the season is up to about 37% on three. And I think at like 5 attempts a game. He just hit five in that Clippers game, which was very cool. Most threes ever by a Heat center, apparently. Apparently, Chris
What?
Bosh never
Chris
hit
Bosh never
five
hit
in a
5?
game.
He had to have
So,
hit at least 4. I feel like I've seen that with my own eyes,
yeah.
but that's impressive.
Yeah.
Look
So,
how far
Bam.
we've come.
I know Bam's shooting it well. Bam's playing pretty well as of late, obviously defensively. I
Oh,
mean, every transition basket we had against the Clippers, it's like some kind of Bam explosion happens, then everyone's running to the other side of the court to jack up a three. But like every stop, Bam was right in the middle of, which I thought was indicative of how good he's been.
it's truly special. There should be a ton of awards on this team by the end of the year if we keep this up. Like Davion needs some all defense nods. Bam needs a depoy. We need a coach of the year. I don't know if they have if the is clutch player of the year still a thing.
It
I'm
is.
trying to figure out what Norm could qualify for. Norm and Tyler need to be. We need 2 all-stars on this team if we finish in top 3.
Yes. And in Jaime
Um,
for six man, maybe.
and Jaime for 6 man. Like I think we should have at least 3 people on some kind of all NBA, all something award season. Like it should be heavily Heat involved because everybody looks great.
Yeah, speaking of hardware, I forgot to mention this till now, but the Heat qualified for the Emirates Cup.
Oh
This is
yeah.
something we haven't ever done before. This Friday, the Heat will play the Magic, I think in the quarterfinals. It'll be in
Mhm.
Orlando, but yeah, if they win, they'll advance, and then I think they have to win again, and then they go to Vegas. So anyway, pretty cool. I think this is the
I think at this
exact
point they already made an additional $50,000 for each player or something like that.
Look at that. Shout out to Myron Gardner. I think
Oh
he'll
yeah.
enjoy that. So, yeah, anyway, kind of cool. I mean, this to me is like the exact kind of team that would care a lot about winning the NBA Cup. Like, I think they
Mhm.
would love that moment. So, I think they're going to go for it. The Magic are playing really well right now, but Paolo's been out and he'll be coming back soon. So, maybe we'll catch them when they're trying to kind of sort all their stuff out, like we've been trying to do with our
And
returning
the
All
way people are
Star.
talking about the Magic, that could help us.
So we'll see, but that'll be a fun thing to keep in mind. Do you have any closing notes for the people, Lean?
No, I'm just happy to be watching basketball. I think I'm going to go see the team tomorrow. Actually, they're going to be here in Dallas. I'm going to go buy I'm trying to decide if I'm going to buy a nosebleed seat for like $20 or if I'm going to try to buy a seat like right behind the bench. So we'll see. Yeah, if we have any wealthy patrons out there that want to fund a ticket for me to go watch the game, I can report back live immediately. But yeah, might go see the team. Excited to. I haven't seen them in person. I think since we saw them in Miami, and we lost quite badly to the Pelicans then. So it'd be nice to wash that out of my memory.
Nice. Well, that is exciting news. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, go Heat. This is a fun season. I hope everyone's enjoying it. I feel like as a fan base, we deserve this after how difficult last year was. So do make sure you remember this team is third in the East. This team is top 6 in net rating. Like those things would sound crazy to last year's Heat team. So keep all those things in mind. Please like, subscribe, comment, let us know any feedback, questions you have. What have you thought of Tyler's reintegration? I know one of you commenters is mad about it. I can feel it, and we want to hear it. So let us know what you think. For myself, Micah, my good co host and friend, Lino, thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys next time.